Welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of our Revolutionary Rich series, where we dive into the kinds of conversations that get into the deeper layers of leadership, impact, and wealth, and how to steward it all in a way that feels more regenerative inside of your world, inside of your community, inside of your mission. Today, welcome, those of you that are tuning in live. Today, we are honored to have the special guest, Emily Copeland, who I see has just entered the room. So if this is your first time joining us for a Revolutionary Rich series episode, go ahead and let me know. And coming in from Canada, welcome. And if you've been around and this is not your first time, I'd also love to get to know if you're watching live or watching the replay. Emily here, and hello.
Hi.
Hi. We have Emily here, and we have a incredible lineup of guests for the rest of the series. The next episode is coming up on Friday, and Emily Copeland
We're here.
woo, is here, is in the room, and this woman is a powerhouse. I like fire is just in the room. Maybe it's because of the what is the
Fire
horse
horse or
fire
something.
horse.
Is
Yeah,
that
it was
right?
in the last episode, and I'm like, wow, it's coming up again right now. I'm like already feeling this fieriness. I was gonna say you're one of the people that I have such a depth of admiration for, the fire that you bring in a constructive way
Hmm.
online as a leader, and as someone who is really devoted to not only talking the talk but walking the walk when it comes to sharing and speaking and advocating for work that matters in social change. So Emily is the founder of Woman Up, and also one of the ways that our uh, synergy has aligned in really juicy um, ways has been in the alignment of ecosystems within business and beyond business that are rooted in collective care and change and liberation. And so, Emily, I'd love for you to get to share with our listeners here as we open up. I know that you've gone through such a big shift inside of your world and inside of your business. And this series it's speaking to leaders in all different shapes and sizes and backgrounds and areas of expertise. But we are also speaking to the experience of being an online creator, the experience of running online businesses and entrepreneurship, and especially for women or
Mhm.
for humans that are of non-binary nature. And um,
Mhm.
so speaking from that lens, knowing that our work and so much of the way that you specifically have really evolved in the ways that you lead, I would love for you to get to share like where you're at right now and like how you are experiencing yourself right now before we get into more of the nitty gritty and all the deeper layers of what I know we're going to get to discuss today.
Mhm. Yes. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I'm really excited to be here with you and everybody who's watching live and later. So where I am right now is for the last 11 years, I have been an entrepreneur. I started my company as a leadership and business strategist and coach for women entrepreneurs primarily and leaders for the last, or when I was 22, I left my only real job, real full-time job, and went out on my own and have been like winging it ever since, kind of, right? And so my background is in positive psychology, important to know, because now my studies have brought me back to uh, business as a primary field of study. And so I'm doing currently an executive MBA at Brown University. And I have a few months left of that. So I graduate in May, but that has been such a huge shift. So prior to March of last year, I was focused only on my business as it had been. So doing things, I was leading a huge community of women entrepreneurs online and in person, and we were doing some really cool things, but I knew there was something that felt a little bit off about it. And so I've been in this season of sort of, as I was sharing with you last night when we connected prior to this live, um, I've been in a season of sort of like destruction that comes before the creation and sort of
Hmm. You're frozen on my end, and I'm not sure if it's only me. If you all are experiencing frozenness, can you just drop inside of the comments here so I know if it's just me that's experiencing the frozenness? It's frozen for you too, for you too. Okay. So we're gonna give a little bit of time for Emily to hopefully be able to reconnect because I know that you're here, you're saying you're here in the chat, but your video is frozen. So I'm not seeing you move on my screen. Just getting into the juice too. Maybe turn your camera off and on again. We have another listener saying toggle your signal. So maybe turning off your Wi-Fi and turning it back on. I will do that as well on my end and maybe hmm. I am not seeing you back. Are you all seeing Emily back on your end? Can you comment if you're seeing Emily back and if you're hearing me correctly so I know what's happening on the other end here? Not yet. Okay. Gonna maybe ask Emily to come off and come back on. Only a still. A still of me or a still of Emily? Let's see. I can hear you well. Can you see Jasmine and can you see Emily? Thank you for your feedback. A still of Emily. Okay. We're still only seeing a still of you, Emily. No, this is not your connection. It's something going on our end because I thank you so much for letting me know here. Emily, I'm going to ask if you maybe come off of the live and maybe come back onto the live if you can hear me. Thank you all for your patience as we resolve the technical issues and stay present because we haven't even gotten into the juice yet. And I just know this is going to be one of my absolute favorite conversations of the entire series because of the value that this woman has to bring and the way that we're going to get to drop into some really important subject matters. Okay, so Emily is now coming back on. Hello,
Did we do it?
we
Hi.
did it.
Sorry. I don't know what the heck happened.
We're back. We're back.
We're here. Thank you,
So,
everybody, for bearing with us. I've been like watching everyone's comments. Thank you.
I know I love the comments. I was like, tell
I
me
can't
what
do
you
anything.
see. So I
I'm
know that
stuck.
it's not my computer or phone computer.
Oh, oh my gosh.
Um,
Where were we
so
even? Now
where did it
I'm
all?
like, where did we leave off? I don't even know what
Yeah.
I said.
Well, you were just going into how your journey inside of your master's program within like
Yes.
business study has
Hmm.
shifted the way that you've been experiencing your whole,
My business.
career. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that reminder. I was like, what? What just happened? Okay, so this past year has been such I'm always thinking about things in terms of like evolution, and evolution includes stages and phases and seasons, right? And one of those is destruction and clearing and making space for what's coming next. And so in that sort of like composting, wintering, destructive phase. And that's where I've really been. And I've been rethinking every single thing. And so the way that I've been trying to describe it to people and what it feels like is like taking everything, like clearing everything off the game board. And then, like, putting pieces very strategically and intentionally back on that feel like the version of myself that I'm building and becoming next, which is a very different version of myself than I've been. And well, like, yes, and right, like I'm the same core of who I am, but there's been a different activation, a different awareness, a different intentionality, a different vision that feels like 100 times as big. And before I was like, oh, I'm gonna go 10 times. And now I'm like, whoa, okay, 10 times and 100 times bigger than where I was feel very different and require very different moves, strategy, knowledge, skill sets, um, perspectives, understanding people, like
Yes.
relationships, opportunities, places, you know. So that has sort of been where I've been in the last year. And undergoing that process of transformation has been massive. Like we sold our house, we moved to a new state. We like my husband and I, we've gone through so many changes as well together and individually in that time. Like a year has felt like, I mean, it hasn't even been a full year. It's like less than just like maybe 11 months. So that amount of time has felt like 10 years of growth. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's like, when that, and I'm sure, we've all been through those moments in our lives where it's like, whoa, this is like a crazy like roller coaster ride and I'm on it and there's no turning back and there's no getting off. So like buckle in, you know?
Hmm.
That's kind of felt like the vibe.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know, like, is there a destination? I think so, but like I'm on the ride. Like that's what I'm able to do. And so it's been such a wild year and intentionally so. Like I knew taking a step and making a huge investment in myself and education and all of this and being exposed to totally different things and new ideas and breaking out of my like industry silo and breaking out of like all of these other perceptions that um I had held for a decade, plus has been so good for me and so powerful and so different. And so the version of myself that's emerging that I'm meeting now is like a really cool chick and I'm excited about her.
I agree.
But also like totally different trajectory. So resetting all of that has been such a labor. And now I'm like building multiple startups behind the scenes with either colleagues or um past clients and friends. And I'm like re-envisioning what Woman Up gets to become. Right now, I just have like one retreat to Morocco for women leaders and entrepreneurs and executives on the calendar for November of this year. And like that feels like, okay, I know that that's happening and I know that that's going to be awesome and epic. And I'm just going to focus on making that awesome and epic and like not overthink and worry about the other things. Cause also I'm trying to like graduate. And by the way, this master's program is intense. Like it's Ivy
I
League,
want to
but it's
talk a little bit
also
about like a
it's
little
also
about that.
it's just a lot. Like it's meant
Yeah.
to be for people who are, working full time, but it's like it's a huge workload. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's been wild. And then also I've been training to run for public office, which like I can't do currently, but will be, I'm like orienting toward that and learning as much as I can because I think it's one thing to like win an election and want to do good, but to actually be an effective
Yes.
public servant and
Yes.
legislator or whatever is a whole different skill set. And so I'm working on developing that also in the background. Um, and I have been like I did a fellowship over a 9 month period somehow also at the same time like and also sold a house and moved and now I'm in New England. I don't even know. It's just been like crazy. And I've been like traveling the world for this program. So I've been in Madrid for a total of a month out of the last year. I've been in South Africa. I've been in
I was
Providence, Rhode
feeling for
Island.
you
I've
when you
been
were in
like,
South Africa. We were talking about that, and I was like, oh, my heart. I was remembering my time in South Africa. And I actually didn't mention this to you, but I think it's so
yeah.
poignant for I mean, the context of what we're navigating right now as a society
Hmm.
in America, but also like when
Yeah.
we think about the history of global change and the
Hmm.
influence of just one leader to really change the whole trajectory of a culture and society. And I was remembering when I was going to the Nelson Mandela Museum
Hmm.
in my time in South Africa, and you came into my heart because I was remembering how, when you first started your program, you were sharing the different classes that you were taking. And I'm like,
Hmm.
if only these types of subjects were common knowledge, like if
Yeah.
the depth of education and information that you have been learning over this past year, and then getting to, of course, like travel and also integrate it within just your own beingness and your own leadership, and then how it's shaping your leadership and how it's shaping your public service, like that I
Hmm.
feel is so so juicy and so important and so challenging to be
Yeah.
holding and to be navigating. I'd love to just like touch on a bit. Can you share some of the titles of the classes that you've been taking? Because I think that this is something that, especially for, I mean, people of all races and backgrounds
Hmm.
and classes, but especially for people who were just not educated in
Hmm.
specific subjects and then are now going through life or leading their business or wanting to be more active agents inside of social change within either their local community or on a larger scale. Like there's things that like we're taught to not necessarily talk about that are
Hmm.
either like stigmatized in some way or they feel uncomfortable. And one of the reasons of having Revolutionary Rich, like this whole series, and the things that we discuss in these series and inside of my world are the edgy subjects that a lot of people like want to avoid, and like what
Hmm.
happens when we actually lean into them and we actually name them and we allow for there to be a healthy dialogue, and then from that healthy dialogue there can be constructive connection and deeper understanding and then aligned action that then ripples out into the world. And so can you just
Hmm.
share some of the
Yeah.
names of the classes that you have been taking inside of your master's program? Because I'm like, these are
Yes.
these are gold.
Yeah. Well, my favorite one, and probably the one that I shared with you prior, is the shared history of slavery and capitalism, which was, I mean, it's life-changing. I feel like just when you actually have the time and the space dedicated to go deeply into like the global history of slavery and what that means and how that shows up today and how workforces are developed and how management styles are developed and all of this is rooted in the same system. Like it all came up to be at the same time. It's wild how interwoven these practices and ways that we think about things, even without knowing now, obviously the original context is so fascinating. um So that's one. We've also been doing courses in like inclusive leadership, ethical leadership, um, financial management, cost control, that kind of stuff, which is totally not, but there's a bigger learning curve there for me because I'm like, every time I see an Excel sheet, my brain like leaves the room. I don't know. um,
You should
but
definitely listen to the conversations that I'm going to have
yeah,
with Lou. That's
I
on
love it.
Friday, and that'll be so good for this.
I'm like, I can do it, but also I would rather do anything but this. Which is good information for me. Like, I don't want to be a CFO. That's good info, good intel for me. Um, and let's see what else. Oh my gosh, there have been so many. We've like crammed so much in. It's not even been a year. Oh my gosh. Um, mm, Something about globalization. That was really a great course, but I can't remember the exact title of the course. Right now, we're doing like managing communities of work, which is about like job descriptions and roles and scopes of influence and control and accountability and all that kind of stuff.
Scopes
Um,
of influence and control and accountability.
mhm.
How necessary in
Yeah.
leadership are these things? I'm just like, they're the things that, if they were implemented by the people that we have chosen,
Hmm.
we'd be living a very different reality right now.
Yes. Very, very, very. So we've had like a good mix of like practical business, like strategy, marketing, financial accounting, that kind of stuff, and the social science and the sort of like philosophy of business or the practices around business
Mhm.
that are really, really important and powerful. And it's the reason that I chose this program. We also did um, entrepreneurial management for executives and entrepreneurial opportunities in developing regions, which is part of why we went to Cape Town, South Africa.
Mhm.
And that was so powerful because what we did when we were there on the ground was we were doing like field research with a for a partner organization that is, well, most groups had like township entrepreneurs from like Khayelitsha or Langa, the townships that were created during apartheid in South Africa and are still um, communities that people live in and are in some parts there are more developed areas of the townships and some parts there are less developed areas of the townships, but there are unique challenges presented when it comes to like a business and society context for how things are done there. And so we were tasked with like supporting entrepreneurs who are trying to really make a difference in their communities in the townships, which is really incredible.
Mhm.
And we were doing like ethnographic research with um, different stakeholders for each of the companies that our teams were responsible for supporting. So that was like incredibly powerful. I like didn't want to come home. It's
Yeah.
like this is incredible. I feel useful. And that was a really great thing that we did. So um yeah, there's just so many things that are swirling around inside of me in terms of like ideas and creative solutions and things that I want to do and 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 2-year, 1-year plans at the same
Mhm.
time. But I keep telling myself, during these phases of evolution, I think often, and I've seen this with clients over the last decade and with myself in my own process, it's like the day that plant the tree is not the day you eat the fruit, right? Like things
Mhm.
require time and a process. And I really like to follow sort of, similar to you probably. A lot of my metaphors are about nature,
Yeah.
gardening, and like
Yeah.
plants,
Yeah.
like things that are truly real and reliable and consistent throughout thousands and thousands of years. Um, and I think for me, that really is like an anchor point because during these times of evolution, during these times of upheaval or transformation that feels massive, it can feel really untethering and
Mm.
it can feel really ungrounded. But for me, I think, whether this is like some people might say this is like an unhealthy thing, but for me, it's like, okay, I have to be so hyper present that there's really there's like no I'm not future tripping, I'm not living in the past. I'm like so present, and there's a time for everything, and there's enough time for everything that needs to happen, and it's so like emergent, which is how I
Mhm.
prefer to live and be and lead anyway in my life. And so it's created this sort of mm, pressurized transformation acceleration situation.
That's a
For
fun mouthful. Pressurized.
yeah,
Well, how did you say that?
I don't even
Pressurized.
know. Pressurized transformation
Transformation
process. Yeah,
acceleration. Yes.
situation. Yeah.
I'm in hearing what you're saying here around, the cyclical nature of evolution and that
Mhm.
need to be so deeply present in the process of it. It's really grounding. It's ironic that you say how ungrounding that is because it's
Mhm.
grounding for me in the context of the way that we get to engage with the current circumstances of our reality.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was going through my master's, like I was studying public policy and art. And so it was a really intensive program, and we were studying and learning, these really key aspects of what allowed for social movements to be
Mm.
long lasting and for leaders and contributors and stakeholders of all different forms of social change to allow to stay in the presence of the transformation and the evolution through
Mhm.
the highs and the lows and the hards and the heavies, and what we're navigating and what we're facing right now inside of culture, inside of society, is one of those times, like, the context of this series and of this work as a whole inside of my world, like revolutionary rich, is like, what does it
Mhm.
mean for you to be a revolutionary inside of your movement, inside of your work? And for so many of us, being radically present in the midst of the transformation of in that uncertainty and that unknown, while facing the realities of oppression, of inequity, of injustice, of these horrific atrocities that are happening, and then still
Mhm.
choosing to be engaged and have the agency and the sovereignty of, like, okay, what can I do about this?
Yeah.
And how can I use my privilege and allow for the resources that I have, time, energy, money, to allow for me to be more informed, and also to have the actions that I'm taking go beyond, one day or 1 week or 1 month. But for those of us like me and you who have been in this for, over a decade, and some people, far longer than that, decades and decades and decades. I know we're in our 30s, but for those listeners that might be older, or for those that are younger. And then for also mixing in the entrepreneurial aspect of it as well, there's this other
Yep.
layer of, okay, now what's the responsibility, not only as being a civilian, like being
Mhm.
someone who is contributing to society from just a human standpoint, and really being devoted to humanitarian work, which I know we are, and there's a lot of synergy in that, but also from the
Mhm.
aspect of leading and running a business and supporting community and clients, and like having how thought leadership impacts and influences culture and society when we show up in the ways that we do for ourselves and for our people. So
Yeah.
in all of that, it
Mhm.
makes me it makes me have this, I feel like this will be really good for those that are listening here live, and for those that are listening to the replay, bringing in that aspect of, regenerative ecosystems, regenerative wealth inside of my world when I talk about it through a nervous system standpoint. And I'd love to get to touch on this with you from more of a, like a public service standpoint,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
from like a policy standpoint, of the ways that showing up in creating impact is regenerative, and how it can be regenerative, when you've already been, let's say, devoted to creating change inside of your work, inside of your business, but you're taking the next initiation, like you're ready to
Yeah.
really show up in a bigger way, or in a more, like impactful way, and then the capacity that that actually requires to be able to hold that level of responsibility that comes with it, and everything else that is also, um, entangled within that, like whether it's the fear or the discomfort or the resistance of like I've already been having a stand, but now I'm actually
Hmm.
going to be taking this the next evolution is calling me into a bigger way of showing up in that mission. So
Yeah.
let's dive into that. And you could even speak
Hmm.
into, if you feel called to, like how you're experiencing this on a personal level. I know you talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the conversation, but even more so, like speaking to the people who maybe see themselves in me, see themselves in you, or see themselves as ready to really evolve in this chapter of their own business or of their own public service. Like, what is maybe some golden nuggets or some wisdom drops around like not only expanding your internal capacity to be able to hold that in the next chapter of your leadership, of your growth, of your wealth, of your impact, but the realities of what that means when it comes to using privilege in a way that's
Hmm.
actually effective and constructive.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much here. I'm just thinking about the first thing that comes to mind is looking at the scale of your impact, right? And I think for me, and maybe for people watching, maybe they resonate with this, maybe you resonate with this, but for me, I felt this inkling. And I know when I get these like intuitive nudges that I have to trust them and I have to follow them. And that's where the best stuff happens for me, right? So the choice to enroll in Brown was like that. I literally like accidentally walked onto the campus and I had this feeling that was very visceral and it was like, I need to be here. I don't know what that means, but then I'm going to follow it and then I'll figure out the next steps and I'll like let the breadcrumbs, I'll follow the breadcrumbs here. And then I'll continue to act and act and act and act and continue to, you know, keep moving it forward. Not just like, okay, I don't know what that means. Now I'm waiting for another sign. Like, no, you feel the thing, you feel the inkling, you feel the urge, you feel the vision that clicks, and then you go. You go, 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 right? Like so that's kind of my approach here, the lens that I'm speaking from. But when I felt like, oh, my impact needs to be way bigger than it has been, I've been thinking too small. And my too small is some people's never in their life, right?
Yep.
Like so when I realized, oh, my calling is actually huge, and like that terrifies most people to the point that
Yep.
they don't even engage with the thing. They look away. Most people will look away. I'm not a person who's going to look away. So that means I need to go like all the way in because
Yep.
like it is needed. There is a vacuum of leadership right now generally like generally speaking, but also of smart women who are of our generation, millennial women who, maybe we're talking about things online, but it's not translating into actual change. And I think like leaders of these movements, and I think in the coaching industry, I think we talk about like movements, social movements. That's been like something that at least in the last couple of years, has become a bit of a buzzword,
Yeah.
like building a movement over building a brand. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
But like actually building a movement that isn't just self-satisfying or business
Yes.
perpetuating,
Yes.
because that's one thing, right? But building a movement that actually changes systems
Yes.
requires engaging in policy, requires
Yes.
engaging in the external world and thinking beyond just your own current sphere of influence.
Yes.
Thinking way bigger about, okay, where if we're going to think from like a systems perspective, then we have to go upstream further, right?
Hmm.
And when it comes to the work that I have been doing with women entrepreneurs in their business and thinking about, obviously empowerment and financial empowerment and inclusion and how do we actually bridge these gaps, and the work that I was doing and what I had built was awesome. Like it was doing that in a lot of ways, but it's still for me felt too limited. Like it's like there's a ceiling and the ceiling is policy, like public leadership, right? Like there's a lot that can happen, but there's a lot that I think what we do often is like we continue to perpetuate this false narrative in the US anyway, in like a very individualistic culture, that we're ascribing responsibility and blame and accountability to an individual for a collective systemic
Yes.
problem. And when you really start to see and understand and unpack that, you can't look away and you can't see it the same way again. And that's not to say that people don't have, you know, personal responsibility within systems and within society, but I think, you know, a lot of what I also think about is like, what are the conditions for thriving? My
Yes.
background in positive psychology really pulls me to think about, okay, well, if this isn't happening and every system is designed to create the exact output it creates consistently, and we keep getting this result, what about the system needs to shift or change so that we create a downstream effect of thriving and flourishing and positive upward momentum for people, right? That's the point of a society, is that it's better to be part of one than to not be. Not that like it sucks more to be part of it and everybody wants to peace out and isolate. So I
Yeah.
think we have these like bigger things going on right now that you know, a lot of people are not as aware of as I have been, based on my experiences and like education and all of the things that I've had in terms of like privilege, right? Privilege, and also curiosity and initiative, and like my own wanting to grow and to evolve and to lead and to better myself and all of those things. Like I wouldn't have said yes to every opportunity that I have if I didn't also have that thing in me, to like serve and contribute and make the world better. And also, there are some things, obviously, that like, yes, I have had exposure and privilege and those kinds of things. That being said, I also didn't grow up with like money and wealth or anything. I grew up in a very mm, small rural town in Pennsylvania. Like I shouldn't be. My educational journey started in a court appointed Head Start, right? Like government subsidized or funded um, preschool. So like to paint a picture, and now I'm in an Ivy League MBA program. So
Mhm.
that has not been an accidental stumble. It has been an intentional carving my own path at
Mhm.
every fucking turn. And
Yeah.
also, there are things that make it easier for me to enter a room and feel like I belong there, or not stop me from entering a room or putting an application in for something that, you know, obviously we're all working with a different set of cards, right? We're all working with a different timeline. We're all working with different types of privileges and disadvantages and advantages and, all of the things. So I want to be clear about that lens. And I think that sometimes we play this game with ourselves and each other, where it's like it's either or, right?
Mhm.
It's like either you have privilege or you don't have privilege, or you did things all by yourself or you didn't, or it's like, no, we all have some combo probably of things, and we're all working with a mix, right? And we like
Mhm.
get to decide what we do with that. And I think, coaching and personal development and all of that is such a huge component of how we think about that in a way that's actually constructive and helpful for people. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting thing. I went viral on Instagram talking about, probably talked to you about this before, but it's like, of course, the thing that like you've spent every day for the last 10 years, like building your business, posting online, sharing in like a frame of marketing, right? And content creation in that way around your mission. And then you start talking about something else that just catches fire. And I feel like that's kind of what happened last January. Was I started talking about this, my story, and saying we're gonna like take back our flag and like reclaim patriotism, because that's not it. Like that is not it. That is like a false. version of what that's actually supposed to mean, you know,
Mhm.
and how I see it and all of these things, and was also like dancing in front of an American flag. Like, people liked that for some reason. I mean, it took me 5 minutes. It wasn't like this masterminded, sketched out strategic move. It was just really what felt real and true and alive and honest for me in that moment. And then it's continued to grow, and the feedback from that, you know, it's interesting when, and I've said this for years to clients and taught this for years, and I'm sure that you feel the same. It's like when you when the right message and the right messenger come together, and like the right timing, and people hear it, it's like a different level of resonance, I think, that happens.
Mhm.
And I felt that like majorly. There were people who were sending me like messages, and mind you, like I didn't really do much. That wasn't like a huge lift, right? Like
Mhm.
it wasn't like I crafted this huge thing. Again, it took me 5 minutes. It was just what was real, true, and alive. It wasn't this huge strategy. I wasn't like, I'm going to be a politician, and so first I'm going to make this post. Like it wasn't that at all. It was the complete opposite. Flip, like, no, I started saying what was real, true, and alive. It attracted attention because I think it hit and resonated in a very specific way. And people were sending me like messages, their life story. They're so grateful for you speaking up. Thank you for using your privilege. Thank you for da 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 da. Nobody is saying it like this. I feel so seen. I feel safer knowing that there are people like you, knowing da 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 da, like all of this stuff. I mean, there were like trolls and stuff, but then I realized none
Yeah.
of them could actually like type a sentence that was coherent. And so I was like, oh, I'm not actually concerned about that anymore. Cool. So I like liberated myself from a lot of those fears
Liberation.
right off the bat, right?
Yes.
And then it just has kind of continued, and I've leaned into that more because I'm like, oh, in the process of other people feeling more safe when I speak up, I feel more safe when
Yes.
I find more of my people, and the wrong people go
Yes.
away and the right people are magnetized, and they're like,
Yes.
thank you. And they're cheering you on. And it's like, what? People are like, when are you running? What are you doing? Da, 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 da. When is this happening? Can I help on your campaign? Can I do this? Can I do that? I'm like, I don't even have a permanent address yet, but like, I am ready when that happens. Like, let's go. So I feel like there's this huge, just and it's not just me. I think there are many people right now that people are looking at and they're saying, you, like you are someone who's willing to actually be brave, to have integrity, to stand up for what's true and right. And I trust you because I know that you're a normal, real person, and you're not some like weird, like installed person who I'm supposed to think is cool and like trustworthy and like, you know, wearing a suit or whatever. I'm like, I'm in Lululemon. Like that's just what is happening over here. Like
I
that's,
just
I
love the
went to
irony of
Pilates.
the
Like actually,
Lululemon.
again, like I'm literally, that's what I am wearing most days. I'm working from home. I'm, you know, trying to go to Pilates or for a long walk at some point. Like that is the situation. I'm not trying to be someone that I'm not. I'm trying not trying to like cosplay professionalism, you know, and I think what we're craving right now, what we're all craving is like real, authentic, honest, like true human in the world of AI and everything being taken over by that, right? Like it's like I can't tell what's real and fake, so like just don't make me question it,
Mhm.
you know? Like if you can
Mhm.
just be so real and true and honest and like alive and human, that would help me out. It's like
Mhm.
sort through what to trust and what to believe.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think it is like a revolutionary act to actually be willing to stand up for what you say you believe and what you feel and what you talk about in private, to do that publicly because it's needed right now. Like it is so needed, and it's so refreshing when you see people doing it. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if I answered everything, but
I mean, we went so
I
many
don't know.
places, and they're all there's
Yeah.
a through line, and I actually do want to connect some of those dots here, because
Mhm.
I think that it's you brought up some really important pieces to like rising in leadership with the visibility and the authenticity that allows for impact to go beyond the self. You know, we're taught within
Mhm.
our
Yes.
current systems, oppressive systems that exist, you know, within society. And, you know, a lot of my work is in dismantling, disrupting, and rewiring those systems internally, how they live in the body, how they live in the nervous system, and then how in shifting and alchemizing the old stories and the beliefs and the patterning and the programming that we're indoctrinated within because of our identities, because of our upbringing, because of our schooling, because of the way that our environment developed our experience of reality,
Mhm.
that you know in shifting that internal experience and opening and creating space and capacity and anchoring our bodies, our nervous systems, ourselves into a way of leading that feels really uncomfortable or that feels edgy or that feels like it's like this next um I'm using the word expansion and evolution, but I liked how we were touching on this before of like initiation into bigger impact and bigger
Mhm.
scope that's
Yeah.
beyond this hyper individual way of that capitalism really encourages and rewards, right? And
Mhm.
then also this piece around movement that you brought in of how it's become like a buzzword for those of us that are in the coaching industry and who are online entrepreneurs, of like that movement being very self-centered actually, versus like what we're talking about here when movements are for public service beyond just a the microcosm of the privilege bubble. And then what does that look like to for it to then be shifting and changing one family into one community into like our city and then our state and then the way that we experience our country and then the way that we experience and see and act on things that are, you know, happening globally, for example. Because another thing, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm gonna circle back here, but this is just coming through here.
I
Another
love it.
thing that, you know, like
Keep rolling.
Western culture, it can be very blind to the
Mhm.
rest of the world, right? And
Oh
that is
yeah.
also, of course, a product of, again, how we've been taught to think, to
Mhm.
see. And so it's not about blaming or making anyone wrong, but it is bringing that conscious awareness into, oh, you've been taught to have this like hyper focused vision on self and movement relating to self, or even with, you know, the country. And so when we think about the way that our policies and government is impacting the things that are happening in the world, you know, in other parts of the world, and then like be actively shifting and changing our own experience of ourselves to then be thinking about how it's impacting things that are beyond ourselves, that's when movements again get so much bigger than ourselves. And so there's this piece that you brought in around when you spoke your truth in a way that was alive and true and real. And that gave other people permission. I know it was for me, I was like, this is so fucking refreshing. Like, I love that you're so, like, you're, and this is one of those ways of using privilege in a way that is effective and that is impactful and that goes beyond the self, but that came from self. Speaking up more loudly and clearly about injustice, about our toxic oppressive systems, about ways that we can actually be taking action, about getting more informed, about getting more educated, about using that education to then you know, reclaim um, sovereignty and things like this in the way that you're thinking and acting and whatnot. But the act of doing that for yourself liberated others and liberated yourself. And so for
Yes.
me, when I'm hearing that and I'm like, I'm drawing on these different pieces of this through line, it's like a lot of the time when I personally, and maybe this resonates for those of you who are listening here, when I have experienced the online industry when it comes to like creating movements or brand or things like this, it's like, oh, liberation for me is liberation for my community or is liberation for my clients I serve. But what the scope of practice where it gets even bigger here is like, this is actually collective liberation in practice as well. It's like, it's liberation for humanity. And so it's
Mhm.
like, when I continue to free myself, I allow other people to free themselves even more just by being inside of my space. And then in that, we all create more space for freedom and liberation for others, because then we see the ways that we have been keeping ourselves unfree because
Hmm.
of how we were taught to exist. And so, like, that's
Hmm.
the active, I think, dismantling and disrupting and reclaiming of leadership that is, it comes from self but goes beyond the self. And
Yeah.
then in that, there's the unity and the solidarity that comes from it when we're taught, again, to go into these different kinds of experiences of either isolation or hyper individualization, or thinking, when you take on more responsibility, there's like this, oh, like I have to hold it all, or like there's a lot to carry, or things like this. And I know, as a Black woman, as a Mexican woman who is Indigenous and who has been like so passionate about social justice work for most of my life,
Hmm.
it's something that, as a woman of color, I have a specific lens of like ancestral encoding around that, of like, to really just be on the front of leading and sharing and giving. And then, oh, you're frozen on my end. You just went away. Can you? Not again. It happened again. Okay, let's see. Maybe coming off and coming back on will help again. I'm seeing, I think you have to come off entirely, because it's still showing your frozen screen on my end. Okay. So coming back on in here, your, this working? Hello?
Okay. I
Okay.
think we're back.
Beautiful. Um, so I was saying, for me, because of my own lineage and my own connection to being a part of movements that are so much bigger than me, and then the ways
Hmm.
that that's like my contribution to that has been, before online space, even I was even on the online space, the things that happen that actually aren't visible, like activism that's
Yeah.
not visible, the organizing, the educating, the pouring into community, the stewarding
Right.
funds and money and resourcing, all of these ways that are not visible and not performative and not meant to be necessarily, like approved, let's say, by XYZ
Hmm.
online. And then there's these other ways where it's like, when there is the privileges, like I fully am aware of all the privileges that I do have, and I'm so aware of all the privileges that I don't have, and how much harder and more challenging it's been for my journey because of that. Just like yourself, like I didn't come
Yeah.
from money. I didn't, grow to wealth. Like everything from all of my education, which we
Hmm.
have that same synergy of like the desire to grow, the desire to evolve, feeling that intuition. I felt that same way with NYU. I was like, I feel like this is where I need to be. And I applied, and it changed my whole life and my whole trajectory.
Yeah.
Um, like there's these different ways that, privilege and showing up in leadership affect people in different bodies, and the
Hmm.
safety and the reality of that, and then the liberation of that for us and for each other, and then how we hold each other in that. And so, like, for you as a white woman, and speaking to things that most white women on the social media world in
Hmm.
online entrepreneurship are not speaking to before it became something that felt more safe for white women to speak to, that women of color or women who have been devoted to social change work, who've been devoted to revolutionary action or to movements beyond brand or beyond business, but like thinking about more collective change. There's a piece here that wants to come through that I'd like to dive into with you. I know we're wrapping up here, but
Hmm.
around like the responsibility as white leaders or as people who hold more privilege or who have more safety or freedom because of the identity that you're brought into,
Hmm.
in choosing to speak versus choosing silence, and how I'm curious to hear your thoughts and what you'd like to share here
Hmm.
around those who say like business isn't political, especially those who do hold more power. Because me, my whole sense of beingness when it comes to leadership, like literally since I was a teenager, like over 15 years, it's been so much in my belief system that like the
Hmm.
personal is political. You
Yeah,
cannot separate the two. But there's, for a lot of people, they don't
correct.
yet fully have that awareness or
Hmm.
see the connection, and so they don't feel like it is their responsibility as
Hmm.
human beings who do care about collective change, who care about like rights or like goodness, or about just like the ability to be caring for ourselves and for our communities in these long-term regenerative ways, like how business is political and how
Hmm.
choosing silence. There's this one quote, like, I don't know if I want to go here. I kind of do want to go here. It's like choosing silence is choosing the voice of the oppressor.
Yes.
And that's very different when it's coming,
Hmm.
when that's being the lived experience of a woman of color who is, ancestors have gone through slavery and oppression and the realities of what that is, versus when that's coming from a white woman who has historically held the privileges and the access to the kinds of resources and spaces that haven't been, as safe or as available for women of color to get to lead in more public ways. And
Hmm.
there's also this initiation, this activation that's happening with people of all races and colors and backgrounds starting to really see the difference that it makes when we all become more visible in our activism inside of our businesses. And so I'd like to touch on
Hmm.
that. And I
Hmm.
know that we're already deep into our
No.
conversation, but we lost a little bit of time because of our tech stuff. So I'm hoping it's okay. We go a little bit
Yeah,
longer for those of the
fine
people
with
who are here
me.
with
I could
us.
do this for days. Um, so yeah, I mean, business being political, the personal is political, business is insanely political, especially now. We can talk about exactly why that is, but on a firstly here, the personal is political because politics is not what we have like labeled it and like siloed it to be in our society today. Politics determines everything from who's your neighbor to are your potholes filled to how is the snow removal where you are to the way that public schools are funded because of the like property value in your neighborhood and who sets that and why and
Food
what gets
deserts,
in and who's
redlining.
I mean I challenge anyone to give me one thing that is personal that is not tied to political or business that is not tied to political. Business is insanely political. Your tax rates are political, obviously. That's one thing. Um, wh- Also, if you haven't heard about something called Citizens United that happened, and you look at where all of the funding comes from for politicians who funds political campaigns, it's business. It's business. Okay? It's business on a local level, it's business on a national level, federal level. Um, it's business. It's who has money. Okay? So it's
Oh, I'm so
business.
happy you brought money into this
Like
because we haven't even touched on money.
it's who has money, which means who has money determines who has power. Who has power is determined by who has money. And if you can create both, you can get elected. Like if you could bring them together, then your ideas are on the agenda. If your ideas are not on the agenda, you are on the menu. Your rights are on the menu. Your idea, the world you want to live in is not just like something that maybe one day will spontaneously poof and happen. It's many, many, many decisions about how we should shape our communities, how we treat each other in society, how what is equitable, what is just, what is fair. And there are debates about all of those things that happen that are insanely political. And I think the biggest scam, besides Republicans are good for the economy, that's a different scam. The biggest scam is that like it's impolite to be political or to discuss politics, or that there's a way that you could be like politically like apolitical or neutral on political matters, because it's not actually a thing. You live in a fucking participatory democracy. You live in a democratic republic. You have to be informed. That is part of your responsibility as a citizen, is to be informed, well educated about what the fuck is going on, and then to show up and vote. Right now, I think we have like at best 60%, two-thirds of people who show up to vote, maybe who are of eligible voting age in in major federal elections every 4 years. Maybe 60%. That's not good. It's not good enough. We have way less than that. And I don't know the exact stat, but way less than that for people who show up on off year elections, local elections, state level elections, which actually have much more of an impact on your day to day experience of living wherever you live. So your property value is a political decision, is driven by political choices. Every single thing that happens in your country is a political decision, because you are fortunate enough to live in a democracy that, I don't know about your ancestors, my ancestors, all of our ancestors fought for, died for, in many cases, to have the privilege that we have now. And women, suffragettes, the fact that there are so many women right now who are literally like, I know this isn't like the right thing to say, but like voting against their own interests is like the only like quickest way to say it. Um, it's it is so disturbing to see people talking about women's empowerment publicly who then vote against women's bodily autonomy, women's ability to have control over their own body, to have control over the course of their own life, to have equitable things in place for women in society. It is crazy. And the only excuse that I can come up with is, oh, you just really don't know. You really don't know. Like no one told you, because systematically we've said, oh, that's improper, it's impolite, you shouldn't be involved in that, you shouldn't talk about it, you shouldn't discuss it, which only gives cover to people's horrible ideas, because they would never stand up in a debate. They would never actually, those ideas would not hold in a real discussion of intelligent, like counter arguments. They would not. And so that, like, especially the idea, especially for women, that, oh, this isn't for you. Don't talk about it. People won't like you. It's impolite. Just sit there and look pretty and be quiet and like don't ruffle any feathers. Fuck that. I'm sorry. That's how you lose all of your rights. That's how you get progress regressively overturned in one fell fucking swoop in one election because of the result of that. And now we're 10 years into that bullshit and we still have, it's happening more and more every day, and it's accelerating. We've got Project 2025 like enacted. We've got Project 2026 coming. I'm just, it's so sickening, the fact that we've been so systematically disengaged, misinformed, ill-informed. Strategically, why do you think that is? Who benefits from women not even knowing about what policies affect them and not being able to vote? We've got the Save Act, basically. Like, I don't even know at this point. I think there's so much going on. I think it's on the Senate. floor right now. So if that goes to a vote and it passes, any woman who has, you know, changed her name because she got married, if your full name doesn't match your birth certificate, you are now ineligible to vote. That is the way these, if you don't know the tricks of the game, you don't know when someone's playing you, right? Like if you don't take the time to actually care enough to educate yourself and stay informed and tell people what's going on because they don't fucking know. Where are they getting there? There's so much happening right now. We have to inform each other. Like it's honestly a duty of respect to inform each other when something is going on because there's no way that one person can know everything. It's just like there's so much right now and things are being reshaped in a way that is not great every day at an accelerated pace. And the people who
Mhm.
are currently pulling the levers of that and who are holding the power and control know exactly what they're doing. Because you can be this has been a systematic decades long since the Civil Rights Act. This is a long tail of a backlash of wanting everything to go
Oh
back.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And they have been planning and architecting this and training their little soldiers who are now there. They have a plan. They are organized. They know what they're doing. This is not an oopsie, oh, they didn't realize this would be the impact. No, they did. They planned it. Like this is very systematic and intentional. And I can't remember the whoever said this, but like the people who love peace need to learn to organize as much as well as the people who love
Yeah.
war, something like
Yeah.
that. And this is where we are. We need people who know what is up, who can organize people, who can lead effectively, and who can actually get shit done on our side of things. Because whether we like it or not, the reality is people who are in the opposition, who are currently in power, who don't want to see progress, who don't want equality, who don't want liberation. They want status quo. And in fact, they want less than that because they actually want to go back to a simpler, better, nostalgic time. But for who? White people. Okay. Like there's so much that I've learned in the last year of just getting obsessed and like not like Twitter education, like
Yeah.
actual education, okay? Reading actual books by credible people, investing a shit ton in my education, going to like engaging in fellowships, taking my time and money away from everything else and doing this instead. And I can tell you the parallels and the inspiration for what happened in 1930s Germany came from us, came from the US, then was
Mhm.
shipped to South Africa,
So happy you're
then
naming
became
this.
apartheid, then was, like it is not gone anywhere. These things we think and we learn as though they are just like, oh, and then we resolved that and it disappeared and all those people just went away and their beliefs just changed overnight. No, they are alive and well. They are among us. Like there are still people who have been brought up to and raised systematically in churches and communities and organizations. The KKK is still a thing. Like Nick Fuentes, there are so many like actual people who are now proud, vocal, call themselves Nazis, okay? That is where we are. And they are a younger generation now. That is what we have to figure out because it is crazy what is happening. Most people, I really think, are not aware, are blissfully unaware of the situation right now, the climate right now, and what we have coming down the pipeline. We are underreacting to a degree that we will look back. This will be another time in history, like when we learned about 1930s Germany, where we say, how did no one do anything? Like, where was everyone? Did they just not know? We know, we see it on our phones now today. There is no excuse. You have a phone, you have a computer, for the most part, the majority of people who live in this country anyway do. And you like there's a missing link between seeing something and then being like, huh, I wonder, like there's a lack of curiosity to want to know for sure, to seek the truth. And there's this whole freaking like psyop on the other side of things that's like a preventative thing to make people stop doing that by telling them, no, we have the truth. This is the truth. This is the objective truth. You're a truth seeker, by just feeding them a diet of propaganda. And it is so crazy, the psychological manipulation tactics and the narcissism at scale, the abuse at scale that we are seeing on the minds of our fellow citizens is deeply disturbing to me. I am not okay with it. And I don't know how anyone could have the awareness and the knowledge and the education that I do and also keep their mouth shut about it. Like, I don't understand. So I will continue to be that bitch who's talking nonstop because it is important. And I don't know, I just don't believe, I don't buy it that like this is what it's supposed to be. This is what it has to be in this world at this time. We are better than this. We can do better. We can. And I think a lot of people right now feel disempowered, hopeless, like, what's the point? Nihilistic. Or they feel like, well, I just vote and then I pray, like, I don't know. I don't know what else I can do. And I think I don't have the perfect answer for this yet, but I'm trying to figure out how to help people bridge that gap because I think there's just something like a huge gap that needs to be filled for folks who don't have the same level of like access and education or the investment or whatever or the time. Honestly, it's like it's a lot of fucking time. I don't know, I don't have kids, I'm doing this right now, like I don't it's like a full-time job on top of everything to actually educate yourself and stay informed in the current media landscape because it's so mm, like bought and paid for or very fractured. You don't know who to trust, right? So
Mhm.
I don't blame anyone for, like, I don't blame the individual person. I blame the system and the piece, like the people who have led people down a path that they know is incredibly, it's just not, it's not what Jesus would do. Let's say that. It's not loving. It's not here. It's not, you know, toward liberation. It's not toward progress. It's actually the complete opposite. And it's for the comfort of those people and for their own selfish, like greed and power and hoarding and all of that. It's not, they might rebrand it, they might message it well, but it's not, when you look beneath the surface one layer, it's like a lipstick on a pig situation. It's not genuine. And there have been so many people who have been duped by this current administration, the way that they positioned themselves, the way that they marketed, depending on the sort of like media ecosystem algorithm that you're in. And that is a form of like treasonous fucking psychological warfare inflicted upon American citizens. And I don't know how I understand now because I've taken the time to understand how we got here because I think that's probably where most people are right now. Is like, wait, what? Like how could it really be that bad? But it's I mean, obviously with everything that's come out in the last couple of days with Epstein file drop and all of that, it's like this is a sick society. It's a sicker, like we've known that, but it's a sick society in ways that we didn't previously know it was, you know? And I think, like, what better time for healers, people who understand the process of transformation, to woman up, to wake up, and to actually assert their voices, their ideas. We are literally, in the personal development industry and coaching industry, we've been talking about this. We're building a new world, new paradigms. No, like we fucking actually are. Now. Like whatever this old thing is literally crumbling by the day. It's being destructed. There's a wrecking ball happening to the global order, the economy, everything. So we need people now who are visionaries, who can think about what's next, who have skills and perspective and understand how to bring people together and build community and write a document, or write legislation, or who understand, who aren't afraid of that, who are actually leaning all the way in and doing everything that we can within our power to turn our words and ideas into reality. And that's the rhetoric I've been hearing in the personal development space for the last 11 plus years, but I don't see people actually doing it when it matters. I see Marianne Williamson trying, but like, I don't see people like, where are you all then? Like, isn't that what you said you were here for? To build a new world, to, you know, whatever, shape new paradigms, all of this, like all of these catchphrases, build movements. Where are you? Where are you? You're certainly not in the state house. You're not where decisions get made. You're not like proposing legislation. You're not at the protests. You're not sharing about it online. You're not, right? Like, what are you doing? How are you using your platform to build a new world if you're just sitting and doing exactly the same thing you've always done when it's time to build that new world? Like, old ways will not cut it anymore. So I don't know. Like, those are my candid thoughts, but like, I'd like to see some people step up, and if it takes me doing that first and being the example, great. But I hope that there are more people who are going to feel empowered and have a path to understand that they can do it as well, and not just within the personal development space, but like in general, and especially women, because what we know about how women lead is that we tend to do it through an ethic of care, and we tend to do it more holistically, and we tend to look at things from a more broad perspective and a more global perspective, and create these regenerative, like win-win-win synergistic situations that are more creative and are less about power over and are more about power with and are more collaborative, which
Mm,
is more adaptive.
mm.
um, one of the other biggest scams of all time is the
Oh, this is
misinterpretation
just calling out all the scams.
of I could go on, but like
We'll have
the
a series just on calling out scams.
scams. No, but the idea that like survival of the fittest, like Darwinism, if you actually read what Darwin concluded in his research, it's that the most cooperative species are the ones that survive, not the most dominant, not the competitive edge is cooperation, is learning how to create synergy with each other. It's learning how to adapt. It's not the most dominant, domineering, whatever. You look at bonobos over chimpanzees, the way that they are more matriarchal. No one has ever reported seeing one kill another. That's what happens. Like, we can see many, many examples of that throughout, like, plants and animals and different species, but humans are the only people who criminalize what's actual, or like who want to go totally against our nature, because of what? Power, money, greed that we created so we could create something better. Then, like, every time people question, like, well, that's just how it is, like patriarchy is just how it is, that's natural. It's like, no, it's not natural. We decided to create systems that uphold that structure and ideology. We can create different structures, then we can
Mhm.
create different systems. Is it going to happen overnight? No. Is everybody going to be on board and it's just going to be an easy float into that? No. But we could create something different and better. And I think my whole life has been people telling me I'm unrealistic or idealistic or not practical. And I'm like, I'm actually the most practical person in the fucking world. Okay. Like, I don't have any patience for things that aren't practical. It annoys me. But I also have vision for what is possible. And I just know, like, I have relentless hope that things can get better. And also, I'm not delusional about the way that things are currently for people, not just myself, but other people of many different walks of life.
Yeah. And there's
And
this piece also that I think that you've been naming throughout this whole conversation that's really important to acknowledge is that there's not a complacency or a passivity about the vision being actualized, in
Hmm.
also acknowledging the realities of where it's very clearly a mismatch for what it is that we ultimately desire. And so
Yeah.
it's like we have for those of us who are really aware, and I know that for many of the people that are listening here, you're either you already own a business or you've been inside of entrepreneurship for some time and you care about social change, you care about social impact, you care about collective liberation, and then you see how that's not happening in the world. And then you're continuing to lean into the edges of like, how can I be creating this even more? And then you have the big vision of what you know is possible. And then actually having, the will and
Hmm.
the courage to then show up in that. And
Hmm.
one thing that I actually really love that you brought up, that it's really, I think, contextualizing this conversation in a way that we can root it down even deeper
Hmm.
in the new systems, in regenerative systems, in regenerative wealth. Like when you speak about, because that's my whole jam, and that's like what my whole work is about. When you're speaking about like money, power, greed, these some of these bigger aspects of why like toxic hierarchical systems and structures exist, and how they keep certain populations disempowered, and then they activate those of us, like the leaders who are like, let's shift this, let's change this, let's do what we can. I think it also really ties into revolutionary rich as a whole. When I'm thinking of, and like when this first started to birth through the first series and as an integral pillar inside of Here We Grow, it can seem like they're contradictory, like they're counterparts, or they're contradictory to be revolutionary and to be rich. But one of the pieces that I want to pull out here in this conversation that is so important for us to really, I think, continue to be deepening in our own work is how being rich in a revolutionary way actually serves us having the power to shift and influence culture and society beyond our microcosms and our privilege bubbles, when we're conscious stewards. I call it sexy
Hmm.
stewards of wealth, and wealth that's in the forms of money, but also just like all of this wealth that you've shared with us here, also wealth in the form of value, of resource, of education, of wisdom, right? Like the wealth that we have to share with our communities, with
Hmm.
society, that enacts us to create more change. And so that's where richness becomes revolutionary. It is supporting the longevity of our movements, and for all of us to be more resourced as we show up in the movement, and as we're more resourced in our bodies, in our nervous systems, in our leadership, then the wealth becomes more regenerative, not just for us
Right.
but for our whole ecosystems. And one of the
Yes.
pieces for that in the new paradigm, or the new systems, or the new structures that we're creating around that, is the ways that are the ecosystems of care that come in community. And so I love that you brought in that collaboration and
Hmm.
connection and working together is, I think it's something that we know when we live it and we practice it, because you and I are people that do that, and I'm sure there's so many people inside of this world are. But it truly is a regenerative currency of the world that we are shaping, and that we're living, and that we're leading in right now, to have those regenerative ecosystems of care and of
Hmm.
resource and of wealth, that then we can be even more powerful stewards of money. And so then
Hmm.
money, for people who are at the place where they're multiple six figures, seven figures, multiple seven figures, like I'm thinking of the women inside of Here We Grow, or like the women that are coming to, we're going to talk about Here We Grow Live, that are coming to Here We Grow Live. It's like, there's this charge and there's this stigma that I know people of all races and backgrounds experience within their body, where there's this resistance to like, oh, bigger, wilder money is like a bad thing. Or
Mm.
like when they get to certain levels of financial success, I'm like, oh, like I'm already, let's say, experiencing, this is not myself, but like I'm already experiencing multiple seven figures in the business, in the brand, maybe like per year or in the last few years or whatnot. And then having that higher level of responsibility, of like care, of like, where do I steward this, and how
Hmm.
does that impact change, and how can that also influence policy, and how can that also go beyond just business growth for the sake of scaling, but like truly making an impact on humanity. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to bring in that piece around like the richness of shifting the way that money is also experienced inside of the body and inside of leadership when it's serving a mission and a purpose that's so much bigger than the individual, and like what we can often think of as like toxic greed or hoarding that is absolutely happening in the world, but that I know you and I, like, we're a stand for money, more money being in good hands to serve
Hmm.
a higher purpose,
Yeah.
and that inherently furthering social change. And so I'm just really happy that you brought that in, because it makes me think of, yeah, this connection between, you know, disrupting, dismantling, and flipping the script on like toxic capitalism into regenerative wealth. And then how, when we come together as allies from different backgrounds, different upbringings, different conditionings, different beliefs, to like get outside of ourselves, and like how can we come together and then be in the kind of collaborative, co-creative partnerships that allow us to rise stronger together. And I know that's so much of what Woman Up has been about. And that's so much of what Here We Grow is about. And that's what has brought us together here to be able to have this conversation. And we've gone for about 90 minutes. We could go for another 3 hours, 4 hours. I know we can keep on going. And I want to give a little bit of space and a little bit of time here to get to anchor in everything that we've talked about so far, and also talk about like what we are actually doing about it. We've talked a lot about, staying informed, making the kinds of choices throughout your day, in how you're engaging, how you're showing up, how you're stretching your edges in thought leadership, in speaking out, in coming together, and all of these things. And also, we have a very the word that wanted to come through was powerful, but I think
Mm.
it's so interesting because revolutionary is just like, it's in the field obviously with the context of the series, but we have a very powerful and revolutionary way for people to get to step into this work and these conversations in person, in the room with us, at an experience Here We Grow Live, where we are going to be diving deep into liberation work from the inside out, wealth work from the inside out, having the kinds of conversations, activations, transformations for those of you who are leaders of social change inside of your business, those of you who are change makers, creatives, artists, visionaries that are devoted to really furthering the impact that you're creating in the world in a way that is regenerative and a way that expands your wealth from the inside out. And Emily is an honored partner of Here We Grow. And I love that you spoke about regenerative partnership, because it's the way that it has come through me. We've all had this conversation around cycles and evolution, and
Hmm.
um, how things come in different times and seasons and rhymes and reasons. And the birthing of Here We Grow Live, which was during May of last year, was before I had any idea that our current reality would
Right.
be what it is right now. And we'd already been in, sisterhood, in allyship. And now I think the time has become even more like viscerally apparent. It's been apparent for us and for so many of you who are listening here, but viscerally apparent how important it is to be together in
Hmm.
rooms, having these conversations and creating the kinds of change and initiatives that are going to then make, the significant differences, not only in my life, in your life, in every single person who we touch, but in the movements that we're here for, right? The collective
Hmm.
movements for women of color, for those who have suffered the most from oppression, from those who have the most privilege to be able to create the most change using that privilege. And so Emily has a beautiful offer that she is opening up for those of you who would love to come and join us and be in the room at Here We Grow Live when you get your ticket and when you join through her. This is an application based experience to honor the potency and the depth that we're going to be going through. It is in April 24th through 25th is the main immersion. We'll have powerhouse speakers and facilitators, wealth shops, somatic and nervous system liberation experiences, panel discussions. We're going deep and we're rising high together in a group of selective leaders in the room. And Emily, I'm so happy and honored and grateful that you're a partner inside of Here We Grow and for Here We Grow Live. And so I'd love for you to get to share anything that you'd like to for those who are listening here around what you'd like to share with them.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's going to be such an amazing time. And for those who are watching this, who are part of my crew, if you don't know, I don't know if you've said this, but it is in San Diego,
Yes,
California,
I did not say that.
and
Thank you.
it's in person. And I know so many of you, I've been hearing from people who are like, I just want to be in person. I want to be in person. I want more in-person experiences. Like, will you be here, or like, are you going to this thing, or what, so this is a great answer to that. It's like, I will be there, come join me, please. It would be so fun to see and meet some of you in person, who feel called to this kind of work. So my little bonus that I'm going to offer is an additional in-person experience. I don't know what it will be exactly yet. We were just talking about this like yesterday, and I'm like, I might need more time to figure out exactly what
About
this
an
looks like. But
in-person experience.
yeah, but it'll be probably the day after, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what is that, the 26th?
Yeah, and you know what I was really loving also? So one of the things that we've really vibed on that I'm so excited to be for this to be a part of the experience and for this to be in the room of us all
Hmm.
together. The space right now, it is capped at 50 people, by the way, and we are already like nearly there-ish. We're definitely over 60% capacity. Is that this bringing of conscious entrepreneurship and public service. And so
Yeah.
that was one of the things that really feels like it's such a like it's so you
Hmm.
and it's so aligned for the people who are here who are in Emily's world or you've been around like either you've experienced her in person already or you've wanted to experience her in person. I think that that through line is it's such a part of Here We Grow, like how we are creating social change, but through this public policy lens that you bring in, this public service lens, like outside of the scope of our businesses, but then how our businesses can support that. And
Hmm.
so I know that when we've been like
Yes.
co-creating and collaborating in our partnership, in our discussion that we most recently had, that came through as like you getting to anchor that in the experience that you offer for the people that come with you of like
Hmm.
having something in person and integrated within the context of allowing for conscious entrepreneurship and public service to intersect and to come together.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, that's part of what this experience will be, is this bonus experience. If you sign up and list, I guess in the application they like list me or
Yeah,
something. Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
There's a part
Put my
of the
name in there.
application form where they'll just put your name.
Okay, cool. So that's how you claim it. But the experience itself will really be about like individualized support around like, okay, so here's your business, here's where it currently is. Um, what does it look like to scale it? What does it look like to work yourself out of it in a way that then, in the next few years or whatever your timeline is, identifying what the thing is that you are on a mission to do, where that aligns with a public service opportunity, and then what you're eligible for, and when, like, these things require sometimes years of advanced planning and preparation. So, like, this is not an overnight thing necessarily. It could be if you're just in that place and you're ready, but we really want to look at, this is kind of the process that I've been doing, right? Is like helping you do what I've been planning to do, right? So looking at the current state of your business, does it need to scale? Do you want to do something different before running for office? What does that look like? where, how, what roles, what's available to you based on where you live. Like we'll figure all of this stuff out so that you have a clear path to public service that also supports your business and vice versa, that they work together and that your mission is something that is enacted through both pathways. And maybe more than two, but like there's lots of things that need to be done. So really looking at how that works for you and an individualized sort of plan and solution and strategy for you to look at like what does your activism, service, whatever we want to call it, really look like in terms of your impact broadening.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Here We Grow Live in April and for you to be with us and for everyone that gets to come with you and for everyone that gets to receive this bonus. Do you want to leave this bonus, this gift open, or do you want to give it
Mm.
a expiration just for those who are listening live or watching the replay?
Let's leave it open. I think
Okay.
like, yeah,
Okay.
open, but just put my name on the application so we know that you also want that, so we can
Yeah.
know to reach out to you and coordinate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. So if you're watching this
Thank you.
live, if you're watching the replay, you can just drop HWGL for Here We Grow Live inside of the comments if you're watching this on Instagram, or if you're watching the replay, you'll have the link as well. I can get it to you. And then in the application, just make sure that you show that you came through Emily's World, and we'll make sure that you get that bonus, that gift from her. And I want to end off with what I love to end every episode of our Revolutionary Rich series of what right now in your life, in your leadership, or in your wealth feels like it is the most revolutionary rich for you
Mm.
right now.
Honestly, it's the fact that through my business, I've been able to create enough financial like runway, savings, investments, things like that, that I was able to step away to focus on basically like upskilling to be able to do things that allow me to have an even more powerful impact in building the world that I want to have a hand in creating and that I want to create with other people. Um, and being able to, invest in this master's program and being able to have the time to, you know, travel and do this fellowship to run for office and like take the time to really investigate all of these things and explore. That really feels
Mhm.
so powerful and so significant um that like without all of that previous work and intentional wealth building, right? I wouldn't necessarily have the same kind of options. And I
Mhm.
think true wealth is really about choice and
Yes.
options. And so I feel like I'm living that right now. And sometimes it's a little bit like, oh my gosh, I wish I had, you know, remember when it was like, you know, everything was just raining in. And then, like right now it doesn't look like that, but it will again, and it will be bigger than ever. So I know that that's what I'm building and what I'm doing and what I'm orienting toward. Um, but yeah, like grateful to the previous version of myself who built all of that so that I could feel safer stepping away
Mhm.
to like invest in the future and build who I'm becoming next. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy and grateful for the realness, for naming all of the naming, for calling up all of the calling up. And for those of you who joined us live, thank you so much for being here. Some of you I know
Yeah,
have been
thank
here the
you.
entire time, which is
Oh my
insane because this was
gosh.
way longer than I expected, but I am here
Same.
for it. I'm so here for it. And thank you for those of you that are watching the replay. And if you are interested and would love to get to continue being a part of this free series, we have a number of other powerful conversations with visionaries and leaders who are just as embodied and incredible as our beautiful guest Emily here today. And you can just DM series on this post series, and you'll get the replays for this call and for all of our sessions sent immediately to your inbox. So that way you can really drop into all of our guests and also get to receive the replay from Emily directly in your inbox. So you can DM or you can comment series for that. And I'm sending you all so much love and blessing up the rest of your week. Thank you again, Emily.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye.